All right. Well, let's do 3-5. As you see, the name of the lesson is called Equations of Lines. Do you remember doing this in Algebra 1? What if I said y equals, what if I said y equals mx plus b, right? So that's familiar to you, isn't it? All right, so that's what, you hated that? Well, maybe, yeah, once you learn how to do it, then it's not too bad. Okay, good. All right, here we go. So we've got two forms. In Algebra 1, you may or may not have talked about this first form, but we're going to talk about it right now. Then we're going to do the one that's a little more familiar to you, the y equals mx plus b, okay? But here's one, and they call it the standard form. The standard form of the equation of a line. So I'm going to write all that down. Of an equation of a line. All right, here it is. I'll just give it to you. It's ax plus by equals c. All right. This one's used every once in a while. It's probably not the most practical one to use. The y equals mx plus b, the one we're going to talk about, it's probably a little more practical. There's a couple things in here you can just look at. This one right here, it's just when you write it out, it just looks a little nicer and cleaner when you write it out. All right, that's kind of what I think. So before we actually get into this, let's talk about two things. What we're going to talk about what all this stuff means. By the way, the A, the B, and the C need to be integers. Okay. I believe, I don't know if it says it in here, but I believe they really want the first one to be a positive integer, okay? Now, you could have a minus here, so that could be negative. You could have equals and negative right here, so that could be negative. But this one right here, they usually want it to be positive, all right? We're going to see some things on, let's see, do we change it to standard form? Yeah, I don't think they do. I think maybe like in an Algebra 2 class or something, they might give it to you y equals mx plus b, and you got to change it to standard form. But right now, we probably won't do a whole lot with this right now, I don't think. I think later on when you take a little bit higher algebra, you'll do some more stuff with that. But what we're going to talk about right now are things called intercepts. Intercepts. So if I have, I'll just draw me a quick little x and y axis right here, and we'll just change this to a red. And right there, okay. This red line right here, it actually intersects two different axes. Do you see that? Do you see it? It intersects. It crosses two different axes. It crosses the y-axis. Where does it cross? Right there. Okay, that's where it crosses the y-axis. Where does it cross the x-axis? Right here. That's where it crosses. Everybody with me on that? So what we do is we call the point, okay, a point's an ordered pair, we call the point where it crosses the x-axis, we call it the x-intercept. Intercept. All right, so these are our intercepts. This is the x-intercept. Why do we call it the x-intercept? Because it does what? Crosses the x-axis. That's right, it intersects, right? Different word, but kind of the same thing. It intersects the x-axis. And of course, what do you think we're going to call this point right here? The y-intercept. Good. Y-intercept. Okay, so that's the x-intercept and that's the y-intercept. With me so far? All right. Let's do this. Let's figure out what that point is. Now, we don't know like it's -2, -3, -1. We don't know that. But we do know that it crosses, like if you started here and you wanted to get to that point, where would you go? You start at the origin and you want to get to the x-intercept. All right, so how far over do you go? We're not thinking a number, but x, right? X number of places, right? Wherever it crosses right here. Everybody see that? So if we start here and we go here, so what's our Yeah, what's our ordered pair then? I'll put it right here. What's our ordered pair? We start here. We go over how far? How far do we go over? X, whatever it is. Okay, we don't know. We didn't put the grid marks. We didn't put numbers on there or anything. We don't know. But we do know that we go over X distance. Agreed? So what's the ordered pair going to be? It's going to be X. Now, how far up and down do we go once we get to this point? We go 0. So what's the x-intercept? It's what? It's x0. Now that you get the idea, you should be able to figure out the y-intercept is. So what is the y-intercept? You start here. You go 0, right? So on the x direction, you go 0. So the first one's going to be 0. And then you go up how far? Whatever your y point is, okay? So you go up y. Does that make sense? Okay. So now that you know that, what we're going to do, in order, we're going to, they're going to give you an equation that's in this form right here. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to ask you and they'll put some numbers in here. So there'll be a number in for A, a number in for B, and a number in for C. Okay, so they'll put some numbers in here. What they're going to ask for is for you to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Does somebody want to get in here? Oh. Somebody want to go see? Oh, she's giving a tour? Okay. That's all right then. All right, so we've got a, what do I want to say? Now I lost my train of thought. Okay, if I wanted to find the x-intercept, what is the y going to be? Like the x-intercept, this could be like -2, right? All right, so what is let's say this was 1 and this was 2, -2, -1, okay? So if I wanted to find the x-intercept, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the y equal to 0. So let me write it down here. Let's go back to white. All right, so to find the x-intercept, I'll just put int, is that all right? Instead of writing the whole word. So to find the x-intercept, you're going to set what's equal to 0 here? The y is equal to 0. So this will make more sense once you do the example, okay? But just write this down, okay? Writing this down? All right, to find the x-intercept, okay, so to find what that x is, what are you going to do? You're going to set the y equal to 0. All right, so to find the x-intercept, y is going to be 0. For an x-intercept, it's always going to be 0. So in order to find it, you set y equal to 0. All right, what do we do up here? To find, let's just write this down. To find, what are we going to find now? The what? The y-intercept. Good. In order to find the y-intercept, take a wild guess. What are we going to do? Set the x equal to 0. That's right. Okay, so we're going to set the x equal to 0. So keep that in mind. Again, right now, you're like, I don't even know where you're going with this. That's okay. On this example, it'll make more sense. All right, but just understand, to find the x-intercept, it's always x0, correct? So the y is 0. To find the y-intercept, it's 0y. So the what? The x is 0. Everybody got that? All right. So let's do an example, and hopefully this will make a little bit more sense to you. All right. This is example 1 in the book. The question specifically says, use the x and y intercepts to graph this equation. So here's the equation, and they put it in standard form. Do you remember when I said the A, normally they would write it as a positive numbers. The other ones could be negative, and there you go. There's a situation where the other ones are negative. But usually, to be in true standard form, they always want the A to be a positive integer. So in standard form, you're not going to have fractions. You're not going to have decimals. Okay, they're going to be whole numbers, but they could be negatives except for the A, right? The A has got to be positive. Everybody with me on that? So we're going to graph this thing. You're like, I have no idea how to graph this. But the problem says, use x and y intercepts to graph it. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We want to find the x and the y intercept because, watch this. If I know the x intercept, all right, let's say it's, what do we say, -2? So let's say that x intercept right there, this point right here is -2. So what is that point? If that point right there is -2, what's the actual point, the ordered pair? negative 2, 0, okay? And then, I don't know, let's say that's 1. Let's say we went up 1. So what's the actual ordered point to that point, or the ordered pair to that point right there? It'd be 0, 1, correct? So what if I did this? What if I didn't give you the graph and all I gave you was negative 2, 0 and 0, 1? Would you be able to graph that line if I gave you those 2 points? Sure. Just plot the 2 points and do what to them? Just connect them, right? Connect them with a line, right? Just make sure the line goes through those 2 points. So with that said, we're going to come up to this. So if I can find the x and y intercepts with this, then all I got to do is take those 2 points, right? Plot them on my graph, and then just connect those 2 points. You follow me on that? So how do I find the x and y intercepts? Let's do the x-intercept first. To find the x-intercept, all right, what do? Set what? Set y equal to 0. That's right. So let's make y equal to 0. There's y right there, isn't it? So what we're going to do, we're just going to plug in a 0 for y and then figure out what the x is, and that's our x-intercept. See how easy it is? Just plug and chug. And it's actually easy plugging stuff in because you're plugging in a 0, right? And 0 actually makes things pretty easy. So let's do that. Let's plug in a 0 for this. So I'm going to write every little step so you see what we're doing. So this is 3 times what? What did we say y was going to be? 0. And then equals negative 6. So now we can do a little bit of algebra and solve for x, can't we? What's going to happen with this stuff right here? Yeah, that's going to be a 0, right? So really, all I got is what? 2x equals negative 6. Now it's super easy. Do you agree? The algebra is really, really easy on this. So divide by 2, x is what? Negative 3. So what's my x-intercept? Remember, it's a point. It's not just a number. I can't just say it's negative 3. It's an actual point, an ordered pair. So what's my ordered pair going to be? It's negative 3, 0, correct. So that's 1 point. And I could graph that, right? I could put that point right there. So now all I got to find is one other point. What's the other point I'm going to find? It's the y-intercept, exactly right. So let's do this over here. So let's find the y-intercept. So let's find the y-intercept. So what do we do to find the y-intercept? We set something. Set the x equal to 0 this time. Not the y, but set the other one, right? Set the other one equal to 0. So we're going to keep that same equation right there. But instead of putting a 0 in for y, we're going to put a 0 in for x. So let's do it. So it's 2 times what? 0 minus 3y equals negative 6. Once you start doing these, you just know that the 2x is just going to go away, don't you? All right, I'm showing you the step just so that you understand why we're doing what we're doing, okay? So here it goes. It goes away, doesn't it? 2 times 0 is 0. So now we got negative 3y. I'm going to write it just so that I don't skip any steps. Now we got to get y by itself. What do? Divide by negative 3. Good. And what is y equal to? Positive 2. So what's my ordered pair then? It's 2. I heard 2, 0. I heard 0. It's 0, 2. That's right. 0. Because remember what we did. We set the x equal to 0, right? So the x part of it's got to be 0. We found the y, which is 2. But they say to do what? To graph the thing. So let's graph it. I'm just going to do it like this. Yeah. It's not that hard. Just 2 lines, right? You're worried about drawing 2 little lines like that? No? Okay. I mean, if you want to use graph paper, I've had people just do all their homework on graph paper, and then when they do the graphs, you already got the lines there. I've had some people do it on graph paper, cut it out, and like tape it to the page. Yeah, it's a little bit of work. But if it was me and I was doing it, I would just do this. Okay? So let's plot the points. Negative 3, 0. Where is that? 1, 2, 3. And then we got a point right here. Okay, that's my x-intercept. Let's plot the y-intercept. It's what? 0, 2. 0, 2. It's right there. And then what do I do with those two? Yeah, just make a line that connects them both. Now, don't do this. Don't do that and stop. All right, because it's a line, right? So a line keeps what? Keeps going. So extend it. I mean, you don't have to go forever because you can't go forever. Forever is a long time. All right. Now, technically, you got arrows on the ends. I probably would not mark it wrong. I know I wouldn't mark it wrong if you didn't put the arrows, but that's your graph right there. Okay? Pretty simple, isn't it? Yeah. So the standard form's not too bad. Okay, if you graph it using the y-intercept and x-intercepts. Okay, so and that's what it says. The question specifically said use the x and y intercepts to graph that equation. Okay, so that's what they want you to do. Everybody good with that? All right. Let's do this. Let's take this graph right here. Let's find a couple things. We could do it with those points if we wanted to. Let's find the slope of that graph. I'll just do it right there. Let's find the slope of it. Find the slope. Now, why would I want to find the slope? Because what did we say we were going to do? We're going to do two equations, right? We did one in standard form, and we're going to do another one in this what? What's the other form? Y equals mx plus b, okay? So let's find the slope of it. We could just use the points and do some math, or we could just use the graph and just count. Let's just count, okay? How far up and how far over? How far up do we go? What's our rise? 2. What's our run? 3. Both positive, correct? All right, because this is up, this is to the right, so they're both positive. So what's the slope of this? It's 2 over 3. If I wanted to, I could just use the points themselves and do the slope. Okay, so let's do it that way, just so we remind ourselves. It's the change in y over the change in x, right? So you subtract the y's. Doesn't matter what order you subtract the y's. Let's go the right to the left one. Is that all right? So watch. It's going to be 2 minus what? 0. What's 2 minus 0? It's 2. All right? And then what is 0? Is it minus 3? It's minus negative 3. What's 0 minus a negative? It's positive 3. Okay? You still get it the same way, don't you? All right? So that's our slope right there. So I subtracted. I went 2 minus 0 because it's the change in y, right? Remember this? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then I went, if I go 2 minus 0, I have to go what? 0 minus negative 3. And I could have gone the other way. I could have gone 0 minus 2, but what's 0 minus 2? It's negative 2. And then I could go negative 3 minus 0. What's that? That's negative 3. What's negative over negative? It's still a positive. So either way you do it, you still get the same slope. Okay? Or you could have just counted. Everybody good? All right. So we have a slope. Now, there's another thing that we know about this. We know both intercepts, right? But in this next little formula, and again, you already know it, so it's y equals mx plus b. Do you remember what the b stood for in the y equals mx plus b? It's this right here. It's the y-intercept, okay? And they use the letter b to find the y-intercept. I think I actually looked it up. There's a good question. Why? I think I looked it up in... Not exactly sure. It's kind of the same thing with the b, kind of. It's not really, because there is an a and a b. A is the x-intercept, b is the y-intercept. So anyway, that's what they do there. But we're not going to worry about that. But the y-intercept is really important. So the slope and the y-intercept are really important on this next equation we're going to do. What is the y-intercept right here? It's 0 what? 0, 2, right? Okay, I'm just going to put it 2, even though I said a y-intercept is a point, you need an ordered pair, but I'm going to put it 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a formula. Go back to white. Thought I did. There we go. All right, I'm going to write a formula that's got the slope in it, and it's got the y-intercept in it. All right, so let's do this first, though. What was that original equation? 2x minus 3y. So what was it? 2x minus 3y equals negative 6. Is that right? Okay, watch what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to take that standard form, and what I want to do is I want to solve for y. So let's do a little bit of algebra and solve for y. So what's our first step if I want to get y by itself? Let's keep it there. Let's move the other stuff. Yeah, let's get rid of the 2x. How do we get rid of that 2x? We subtract, because this 2x is being added, right, to this over here. So it's positive 2x, so we subtract a 2x, all right? And then we could subtract 2x from here. Okay, that adds up to 0. Bring this down. That's negative 3y. Now, in our little formula, we could go negative 6 minus 2x, couldn't we? All right. But what we're going to do, we like the x to come first. Remember y equals mx plus b? All right. So we'd like the x to go first. So let's write it with the x first. So what's that going to be? It's going to be negative 2x, right? Because you keep the sign with the 2x. So it's negative 2x what? Minus 6. Very good. You with me? Okay. One more step to solve for y. And I'm going to show you why we're solving for y, all right, and how we get this little formula. So what do we do to get y by itself? Divide by negative 3. Now, we divide everything by negative 3, all right? So don't forget that. So you divide this by negative 3. If I could draw. There we go. And divide this by negative 3. All right, everything over here on the right-hand side has to be divided by negative 3. So I just took them individually and divided everything by negative 3. What happens here? They cancel out. What do we get? Y equals, what's negative over negative? Positive 2 over 3. Now watch, this is 2x over 3, but we're going to write it just a little bit nicer. We're just going to put the x right out and right beside it, okay? So we get the 2/3 kind of by itself times the x. What's this going to be right here? Positive 2. So we put plus 2. Okay? Now, look what we did. We took the original standard form of the problem that we had. We solved for y and we got this. Do you see anything that you recognize in this little formula that we've already found? Well, you found the slope. Where's the slope? It's right there. What else did you find? The y-intercept. And where's the y-intercept? It's right there, isn't it? Okay, so we could, this formula and this formula, or equation, it's not really a formula, we'll call it an equation, all right? So these two equations are really the same equation, aren't they? Except on this one, I just got y by itself. That's all I did. I just moved everything over to the right-hand side except for the y. But it's really the same equation, agreed? It's just written in a different form, all right? Now, what is that 2/3? That's the what? That's the slope. And what is this plus 2? That's what? That's the y-intercept. Okay? So what we're going to do, you ready? Hold on to your seats. Now we have a little equation. Y equals, what's the general letter that we use for slope? M. And we just put the x right there. And what did we say we were going to use for the y-intercept? What letter? B. All right? And then plus b. There it is. We call this the slope, oops, got ahead of myself, the slope-intercept form. I'll just write it all out. Intercept form. What was the other one? What was this form right here? Standard form, okay? And this is the slope-intercept form. This is the one you'll probably be using more than anything else. All right, but you could use this form as well, and you could graph it. Okay, what's the easiest way to graph this? You could do it two ways. You could just solve for y, right, and graph it from the slope-intercept form. Or you could do this, the intercepts, right, the x-intercept and the y-intercept, and graph it from that. All right, so you could graph this two different ways, but you'll get the same exact graph. All right, what do you think? Does that make sense to you? So here's a question they're going to ask you. Here's an example, example 2. They're going to say, write this in slope-intercept form. So we'll do it really quick, and then we got another one to do that's a little bit tougher. Right now, that's in standard form. So you want to write it in slope-intercept form. So we're going to do just what we did before. We're going to solve for what? We're going to solve for what? Everybody up here. We're going to solve for what? We're going to slope-intercept form. What's slope-intercept form? We just wrote it down. It's in your notes. Did you take notes?
No.
He didn't. He doesn't take much notes. Okay, so it's y equals mx plus b. All right, so what are we trying to solve for?
Y.
Trying to solve for y. So let's get y by itself. We just did one a few seconds ago, so let's do it a lot quicker this time. Let's do it without writing quite as many steps, okay? I showed every single step on the first time, so this time let's do a little bit. So what am I going to do with that 3x? I'm going to subtract it. So, and I want it out in front, don't I? So don't put it after the 4. Okay, so put it right here. Okay? And now we can show this step, divide by 4. So what are we going to get? Y equals, what's that? Negative 3/4, and then an x. Divide this by 4, what do you get? Negative 1. Okay, and there it is. That's all you got to do. Now they ask you to graph it as well. Okay? All we're going to do is just count and know where your numbers are. All right, so what's the first thing we're going to graph? The negative 1, the y-intercept. Okay, so let's do that first. This is the y-axis, so here's negative 1. We'll put a dot right there at negative 1. So you always start from your y-intercept when you do the slope. Okay, so remember what the slope is. It's what over what? Rise over run. So we're going to start here. We're going to rise how much? Okay, so that means we go down 3 places. Don't go down to the negative 3 number. You count 3 numbers down from where you started. Make sense? All right, so where are we going to be? We're going to be right here. And now what do? 4 to the right. So I'm going to put 4 spots here. And so there's down negative 3. There's 4 to the right. Put a dot right there. And now we're ready to graph it. What are we going to do to graph that? Just connect the dots. That's right. That's all graphing is, just connecting the dots. All right, just like that. Did we do it right, Mr. Cheadle? Good. And again, I probably wouldn't take off if you didn't put the arrows, but it is a line, so we put the arrows. And technically you should have arrows here too, but I don't care about that. Okay, so there you go. Yeah. Can we do one more example in less than a minute? Yeah, we can. Watch how easy this is. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to look at,